No, no, no. This is not going to be the Zip Show. Sorry. We are not letting that dog take over this show.
Who's upstaging us?
Yeah.
Oh, we have far better hair than she does. I'm amazed.
Yeah, well.
That dog trying to take over, you know, you give a dog an inch and they take a mile.
They go find a squirrel and chase it up a tree, and then they think everybody should watch them bark at it for a couple hours. So.
Did she bark herself hoarse?
Just about, yeah.
Just about.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
then we'll be quiet for a day or
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
So welcome, everyone.
Isn't it lovely?
Yes, it is. The sun's so bright, we have to wear shades.
That's right. And you probably didn't recognize Mary C. Anderson when she had her shades on,
And
right?
this is Nancy Bergman.
Yes. And this show is not the Zip Show, it is the History Files. Mary, did you know that March is National Agriculture Month?
Yay, farmers! Without you guys, we don't eat.
That's right. So we thought today we're going to such a nice day. We're going to take a little walk and we're going to talk about the big money crop that was Trempealeau County's big money producer originally.
And it wasn't dairy.
No, it was wheat.
It was wheat. Surprise.
Yeah.
And wheat is what led us to dairy, though.
Well, it did. Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to walk and talk. Hopefully I won't fall over while I'm doing this. So everybody, yes, I'm glad you didn't turn off your TV set or whatever when you first thought it was going to be a dog show.
Nope, no dog shows, at least not as part of the History
No,
Files.
okay. All right, so let's take a walk.
Sounds great.
Like I said, it's National Agriculture Month, and I think what a lot of people don't realize is that the original white settlers that came into Trempealeau County, they settled here because they thought they were going to make a lot of money growing wheat. And wheat is not a big crop in Trempealeau County anymore, but back in the 1850s and the 1860s, it was a major crop in this county, and there's several reasons why. Number one, they said that wheat is a pretty easy crop to grow. You don't need a huge amount of machinery to do it. And up here they tried to get 2 crops a year, which meant more money for them. And during the Civil War and then post-Civil War, the price for wheat was way up there. So it was a good way for people, especially immigrants who didn't have much, to make some money, to make some cash. However, the wheat boom in this county did not last for too long. So Mary, have you ever grown wheat?
We have.
And was it an easy crop?
Yeah, it was pretty simple. You put it in the ground. But the thing to keep in mind is that wheat isn't perfect. And it's subject to this disease called smut,
Okay.
which can affect your crop.
Well, and that's a good segue into why wheat did not stay a popular crop of choice in this county. And it gave some reasons. I was reading on, actually, I had an email from the Wisconsin Historical Society, and there was all the information about wheat and dairy. And they said one of the things that happened to kind of make the wheat not become the crop of choice was, number one, it really depleted the soil, that it used up a lot of nitrogen. And if you're trying to double crop, especially, that's probably pretty hard. The next thing, this was really the big thing, were the cinch bugs that came in. And they would kind of eat on the stem and suck the life out of the plant. And every year it seemed like there were more and more cinch bugs, and the crop just got smaller and smaller. So that kind of put the damper on growing a lot of wheat. And also, by about, the 1870s, 1880s, a lot of people had gone out to the Dakotas and Kansas, Nebraska, and areas like that. And they were really giving Wisconsin some competition in the wheat growing. And they seemed to be able to grow it cheaper. And after the war, after the Civil War, and people got going on the economy again, the price had gone down a little bit. But they said, I think it was in the late 1850s and 1860s that Wisconsin was actually known as the breadbasket of the United States because they grew so much wheat. So, Mary, maybe you can, since you're our agriculturalist here, our agronomist, you can tell us that's true about the wheat really sucking up the nitrogen.
And I don't have a mic, so...
So I suppose that back then you couldn't run into your handy-dandy extensionist and find out what you needed to do.
No, at that time you were kind of on your own. And the grasses really seemed to come in as the wheat ground was depleted. And, you know, grasses can tolerate pretty tough soil conditions. Yeah. And that kind of helped ebb into what industry, Nancy?
Well, that became dairying. The dairy, because the state was not always Wisconsin's dairy land. It had been, you know, the breadbasket for a while. And then when they thought that wheat seemed to be, you know, going away there as a big cash crop, they were trying to figure out what else the farmers could do that would work for them. What would be a good cash crop? And that's about the time that Mr. Hord, who became governor of Wisconsin, that started pushing dairy.
W.D. Hord.
W.D. Hord. And he started his favorite magazine there, Hord's Dairyman. I think that was in 1885. So that periodical has been around for a long time. And I think it's still published.
Yeah, I just got a copy the other day.
All right.
Well,
so
I'll bring it and you can drop in some pictures.
Sure. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to walk out here and we're going to look at a field that's been planted to winter rye. And this is March. And the farmer that rents this plot of land from us, he tried this last year and has been very happy with the winter rye. And the one thing that we weren't thinking about is the deer love it. Oh my gosh, I said, you won't even have to put any manure on this field because there's so much deer manure out there already after this winter. Those deer were out there eating away. But it's so nice to see something bright and green. The interesting thing was that, and they said in the 1860s that 1/6 of all the wheat produced in the United States came from Wisconsin. But by 1899, 90% of Wisconsin farms were dairy. And so that was, well, it's like you say, Mary, it's because Wisconsin grows good grass. So that was one reason why it really took off here. And there had been a need for another cash crop, and dairying just seemed to be a perfect fit. And so we became, you know, Wisconsin's dairy land. Now, right now, we're standing out here, sun kind of going down behind us. We're out in this field of winter rye. So, Mary, what do you think about winter rye?
Winter rye is a really nice cover crop. It makes great silage if you can harvest it early, like baleage. And it makes really good grain. Hogs love rye, as well as you can get lots and lots of tons of straw.
And let's also say the deer like it too.
The deer like it too, and you know, we got to be good to everybody, right?
That's right. Now, what if it's growing as a cover crop?
As a cover crop, typically the producer's going to let it get up to about that 6-8 inches, and then they're going to come in and either do a mechanical kill, or they will do what's called a chemical kill, or they'll go in and spray it. Organic farmers will actually let it grow taller and more mature, and then they will crimp it, break the stalk, and then they use it as a no-till protection cover on the soil. Rye's got nice roots, and so it helps protect our soil at a time of the year when typically the soil is bare. And granted, we were dry last fall. This spring, the snow's gone, Nancy, and the water's no longer running, and we only had about 2 weeks of...
I know.
We're kind of on the dry side.
We are.
But having that cover crop really protects our soil when we have heavy spring rains, which we may get next week. Keeps our soil in place, and it's green. It's doing its thing. It's taking in carbon dioxide and giving us oxygen. So, yeah, it's growing, doing a good job protecting our soils.
Does it put nitrogen back in the ground?
No, rye is not a legume. And winter rye is typically seeded in the fall of the year. It needs to vernalize, which means freeze. It needs to sprout in the fall just a little bit, freeze over winter, and then that tells the plant the following year to go reproductive. And so the second year is going to be when it produces the actual seed grain, if the producer lets it go that long. Typically, that harvest usually happens the beginning of July to about the time the Trempealeau County Fair is going on.
So you talked about growing wheat here. I don't know if cinch bugs are a problem anymore, but you said there was a disease called smut.
Smut, yes. It's actually like a fungus.
Okay.
And of course, usually things like cinch bugs or alfalfa weevils, a lot of these bugs and pest problems like a smut, we see it with like northern corn blight. When we have the same crop on the same acres year after year after year, it's hard on the soil and the pests seem to come in. That's why crop rotations are so important, because through a crop rotation you can essentially change the disease cycle as well as the pest cycle by taking away their food sources.
So I would imagine back when these early settlers were planting the wheat, and they were trying to get 2 crops a year and just putting it back into wheat over and over again, they weren't doing any crop rotation, which probably really wore out the ground for wheat.
Yes.
Yeah, that wasn't, I don't know if they even had that in part of their farming strategy. And a lot of these people really weren't farmers by trade, but they thought this is, a get rich quick scheme. We'll go out there, we'll grow wheat, which is pretty easy, and it doesn't cost a lot to get the seed, and we're going to get rich quick. If you hear something, it's my dog attacking the oak leaves, so yeah.
I'm laughing in the camera's jiggling.
Yeah. Well, and as you can see, this field that we're on right now, it's not exactly nice and flat, is it?
No, it's got to be at least 16%.
Yeah, it's a small field, and so yeah, it's like a lot of our fields up here in this part of Wisconsin. It isn't like the nice flat as a board fields like in places like Iowa and Illinois and the Dakotas. It's a little more challenging, but cows seem to do all right.
Well, what's the name of the road that runs past here?
Square Bluff Road.
So it's not Square Flat Road?
No.
Valley Road?
No.
So a bluff kind of gives us a little indication of what's going on, right?
Yes, by all means. And I did, a little more information on why dairying really took off, and not just because wheat was going away. It just, let's see, it had some reasons. It said,
Turn this way. Okay.
Why dairy succeeded so well in Wisconsin. And one was about the people that settled here. There were a lot of people here that settled from New York and out east, and they knew how to dairy because they had been doing dairy out there. And also, let's not forget about our Norwegians, our Germans, and our Polish. They were pretty good dairy people. I mean, they had some know-how. They knew how to do it. I was told that it was traditional for the women to always take care of the cows if you were in a Scandinavian, and it was unusual to see men milking a cow, but of course that changed. And there was also, they learned to make, cheese from the milk that was produced, and it was harder cheeses like Swiss cheese and cheddars, cheese that would keep and cheese that would ship. And so that really got to be a big cash crop here in Wisconsin. And also they said, again, we had people that knew how to do it. These Germans and the Scandinavians, they knew how to make cheese. So that was another reason that Wisconsin became America's dairy land. And again, we talked about William Hord, who promoted the dairy. And he worked for like 50 years, they said, really promoting dairying in Wisconsin. And he promoted dairying through the University of Wisconsin. And they would have different lyceums and farmer education around the state for people that wanted to do dairy. And so it really took off, and it worked. And according to my notes, it talked about how the University of Wisconsin promoted dairying and the use of silos. That was a real innovation. And they were the ones that developed a butterfat test. And they had institutes all around the state, and providing milk regularly for cheese making required more regulation and more confining and a routine for farmers who were not really used to it. But again, we had a lot of settlers here that knew about dairy, and that was another reason why it took off so well. Plus, the cool season grasses, I think I've got that right, grow so well here in Wisconsin, and that was the thing that the cows really, really thrived on. Now, I remember my grandfather was a cream hauler for many years, and he started out using horses and a wagon, and he would haul the cream cans from up around Hardee's Creek, Glasgow, and Decorah Prairie, down by Galesville, and then he would haul it into the creamery in Galesville. And as time went by, he eventually took like an old Model T Ford car and made it into a truck, and he went and picked up his cream cans that way. Yeah, it was a pretty hard job lifting those those big cream cans up. And at that time, I believe they were mainly selling cream. And they separated it, and the milk that, I don't know what you would call it, just the milk and not the cream, often that got fed back to the livestock.
With help. Look at that. There's the helper coming in.
Zip, come on, move. Yeah.
Gotta be in the movie.
Yeah, she's photo bomber.
But look at how nice this looks. Bright green.
And even under the snow all winter, it was bright green.
Yeah. And it really, really holds the soil. It's a crop that does really well. And pigs like to eat it, and you can replant it the next year. I don't believe it's been genetically modified yet, so it's still kind of a pure crop.
Okay.
But no, Nancy, did you ever have the opportunity to milk cows?
Yeah, I did. My grandpa hauled cream, but he and my grandmother, they kept about a dozen milk cows, Guernseys, that they milked by hand, morning and night.
I had an opportunity to milk a few cows in my day.
Okay, but I take it probably not by hand.
Oh, no. Well, occasionally you had to have a cow that, got a stepped on teat or hurt herself or had mastitis. And then, boy, oh boy, would your hands get tired. But, at one time in my life, I milked cows 3 times a day.
And that's kind of the dairy culture that you and I grew up with.
Oh, yeah. And I know you milk cows in a parlor.
Right, I did for a while.
And did you ever milk cows in a stall barn?
Well, that's what my grandpa had. And I didn't milk his cows, but I would be out there with him.
Was it a stall barn or a stanchion barn?
Oh, it was a stanchion barn.
Where they came in and they put
Yep.
their heads in. And
Yep.
see, now when I was doing custom milking, because I kind of have cow issues,
Whoops.
and so I would do custom milking. And I would milk in like a tie stall barn. In the tie stall barn is where you actually, the cows have like a little neck chain, and then you hook them, or tie them.
Uh-huh.
And then there was the stanchion barn with the automatic stanchions, where you just pulled the lever after the cows came in to their trained and assigned stalls.
Well, and I always talk about, that routine that each cow had its stanchion.
And you better hope that Betty Lou was dry when Cindy Sue needed to take that stall for her lactation.
Oh, yeah.
Or they were not liking it.
That's right.
Talk about upset women. Holy cow.
So, if you lived in this county back in, the 60s, 70s, 80s, and before, this county kind of was run on the dairy culture. It determined what time things started. What time did school start in the morning? What time did it get out?
Football games weren't played till 8 o'clock at night, so everybody could go home after school, do chores, come back, play football.
That's right. That was something that was always taken into consideration. And at least around where I grew up by Galesville, it was you milked at 4:30 and 4:30.
See, well, when I was doing the midnight milking, it was 3, 3, and midnight. But when we milk cows, it was usually 5 and 5.
Well, that's reasonable.
12 hours apart.
And for a lot of people nowadays, the thought of dairy farming and having to be there twice a day, no matter what, to milk those cows is not something that they really consider being a great lifestyle.
Well, the thing of it is, and I like to tease, of course, kind of a jokester. I always laugh that the milk cows are the first wife and the beef cows are the mistress.
Okay.
Because with the milk cows, you have to be there really 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you can get good help, but the cows have to be cared for every single day and milked twice a day. That's quite a commitment.
It was a huge commitment, but I don't remember people when I grew up ever complaining about it.
No.
That was how you made your living, and that's what you did. A lot of people would brag on, they hadn't missed the milking in 5 years or something.
Well, and there's nothing more peaceful, and I'm sure there's folks in our viewing audience that will recognize this. Sitting in the quiet of a barn in the winter time when the cows are laying down chewing their cud.
Yeah.
the low sound of the radio in the background.
Yeah, and that was always contentious. What kind of music do you milk the cows to?
Oh, if you could. In high school, my stepdad said, no rock and roll on the radio. It's going to upset the cows. The cows have to have country music.
Well, I remember they had one farmer I worked with, like polka music for his cows.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I think, the cows really enjoyed listening to WHTL on Sunday mornings.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
The polka hour?
Yeah.
You bet.
You better believe it. But that was a big, that was a big concern. What kind of music do you have on in the barn? So, yeah, it was a good life. And it was different. It was a lot of hard work. And you had to be a herdsman. You had to know about the crops. You had to be a good mechanic, be able to fix things. Being a farmer was really pretty complicated, to say the least. And it's kind of sad now that with the milk prices not being very good, that in this county, Trempealeau County, we went from having over 1,000 dairy farms. Now I think we're down below 300. So it's quite a change. When you think of dairy farming in Wisconsin, for a lot of people, they think about the red dairy barn and the cows, maybe Guernseys or probably Holsteins out there grazing. That's their idea of the Wisconsin pastoral life. And there are small, clean herds around yet, but a lot of the dairying, its day has kind of passed, and it's kind of sad. And I do have a little story to share, and that was, I can remember on a spring day, it was probably April or May, and I was visiting down at my neighbors, Mavis and the Andersons, and Edward Anderson, and we were sitting out there on her steps, and the cows suddenly came out of the barn. They were kicking and jumping and just running, and those udders were swinging back and forth. And there was one cow out there that was really athletic. She was bucking like a rodeo bull. And Mavis turned to me and said, "Would you believe that that cow is 18 years old?" So these cows lived for quite a while. Well, I'm glad you came out here today to talk about one of my favorite things, and that's agriculture.
It's one of my favorite things too, Nancy.
And especially talking about the dairy farms.
The dairy farms and the wonderful work that all the farmers do, not only here in Wisconsin, here in Trempealeau County.
That's right.
But across all of the United States.
That's right. That's right.
They all work very, very hard to make sure we all got something to eat.
And not just us, but they really do feed the world.
They do.
Yep. And it is pretty wonderful. Now, coming up here pretty soon is going to be Easter. Now, Mary, I have a special Easter present for you.
Uh-oh.
It's beautifully wrapped. Notice, it's wrapped.
I'm always afraid that something's going to jump out.
No.
And
I spent hours wrapping this.
And is this one of the... Oh, look at this. The best thing you can give for Easter is pickled eggs.
Beet pickled eggs.
Beet pickled eggs. That's why they're red.
Yes. Yes.
So these are self-dyed natural colors.
That's right. That's right. I mean, Easter, that's your traditional egg time, right?
Yes. Yes. And I will put these in the refrigerator, and I will not share red eggs. I love pickled eggs. Do you like pickled eggs?
They don't like me.
They don't like you?
No.
See, this is one of these things where I can sit down, and if I didn't have to be accountable to other people in my home, I'd sit down and I'd eat the whole jar.
Oh my God.
But then, of course, the house would have to be kind of quiet for a day or so to settle down.
But I just thought, here's the perfect Easter gift for Mary. I appreciate her coming out and helping with this so much.
Oh, this is so fantastic. Thank you, Miss Nancy. Happy Easter, everyone.
Yeah, and thanks to all of our fans and people that talk to us and stop us or whatever and say, "Oh, I really like, such and such a show."
Yes.
So, and we like doing it. So
exactly.
It's a good deal.
And we are grateful for our farmers, and we will see you next time on
The History Files. Not the Zip Show.
Not the Zip Show.